Every once in a while, there are players who burst onto the scene and they have you thinking, wow, this guy's going to be something special. Most of the time, we get to witness their rise to the top, and amongst those players, there are those that have their careers ended prematurely. Whether it be by injury or tragic accidents outside of the sport, we never get to see them at their peak and we're often left wondering, what if? Here are 3 NRL players whose careers ended too soon. Prior to making his pro debut, Sunnyfire was being heralded as the future face of the New Zealand Warriors, and his skill set was being compared to the likes of Sonny Bill Williams. I, however, didn't see it as such. It's no knock to Fire, though similar in stature to Sonny Bill, Fire had a unique running style, and what really stood out to me was his work ethic and his effort from the little time we saw him on field. He kind of had a Simon Mannering feel to him. In 2007, Fire was named New Zealand Warriors Under-20s Player of the Year. He played in 21 out of the 22 games for the Auckland Lions in the New South Wales Premier League and scored 14 tries. In 2008, he made his pro debut for the Warriors against the Eels at Mount Smart, and just after 15 games in the NRL, both Samoa and New Zealand had named Sunnyfire in their 2008 Rugby League World Cup training squads. On January 4th, 2009, tragedy struck. While out with family at a local beach in Auckland, Sunny got caught in a rip current while trying to save his little brother and cousins from being swept to sea themselves. And after extensive searches by local police, Warriors players and Warriors staff, it was later announced that Sunnyfire had drowned and his body was never found. There's no telling what Sunny would have become in the league. What we do know is that he was a remarkable talent whose work ethic was second to none, and that he had all the makings of becoming a household name in the sport of rugby league. Before the brutalising bumps and destructive runs of players like Micah Sivo and Semi Radradra, hailing out of Sydney's west by way of Auckland, New Zealand, Daniela Tuyaki, nicknamed Tank, an import from New Zealand Rugby Union, quickly made a name for himself as an elite finisher during his short stints in the league. Not only did he have the power and explosiveness to get past multiple defenders, he was surprisingly fleet-footed and would often leave defenders grasping at thin air. Since making his debut in 2006 for West Tigers, Tuyaki would go on to play 78 games, scoring 42 tries, which is a damn good strike rate in itself. 2009 would be his best and last year in the league, and in round 23 of that season, he bagged a hat-trick of tries which would make him the lead try scorer in the league at the time. Unfortunately, he wouldn't get a chance to improve that tally because in the following round he would suffer an ankle injury that would ultimately end his career. Daniela was well on his way to becoming one of the league's greatest finishers. I think some would even say that in 2009, prior to getting injured, he was the best winger in the league at the time. When it comes to discussions of players that could have been superstars or mainstays in the NRL, I think Yao Yi is a name that'll forever be mentioned. Yao Yi came up through the Parramatta junior system, but his stint there wouldn't last long. In 2007, it was alleged that the Parramatta recruitment chief at the time had told Yao Yi that he was never going to make first grade and he had been moved on from the Eels. In an appearance on Andrew Voss's Fox League show The Fan, Yao Yi himself said that it had motivated him and lit a fire under him to do better and eventually crack a first grade team. Enter the Brisbane Broncos. He was recruited in 2008, and in 2009, Yao Yi made his NRL debut in a season-opening Queensland derby match against the North Queensland Cowboys. Yao Yi scored on debut, and he went on to play 59 more games for the Broncos and scored 33 tries. That's roughly 3 or maybe 2.5 seasons. Not too shabby for someone who apparently wasn't good enough for first grade. He was often compared to GI, and though there were similarities, I thought Jarrell had a little more X-factor and athleticism to separate himself from those comparisons. For example, he'd often get the ball in one-on-one situations and he'd effortlessly sneak kicks behind the defensive line, or who could forget when he'd turn blokes inside out like he did the King in the North. He had also represented Queensland in State of Origin, played for his country at the international level, and his heritage in the All-Stars match. In 2011, he was named the International Rookie of the Year, and in the following year, he would suffer a season-ending injury in round 4. From what I understand, the injury just never healed well enough for him to play again, much like Daniela Tuyaki, and plenty of players before and after them. Players that recently come to mind is Matt Gillett from the Broncos, but I digress. Yao Yi tried to make a comeback returning to the sport in 2013. He played second row for North's Devils, but later announced his retirement in 2014. Although brief, Jarrell had quite an illustrious run in the sport. If you asked him, he'll probably say he had great players around him, and though that is true, I think his performances and freakish moments make him one of those great players that he humbly says he was lucky to play alongside. And that about wraps up my short list of players whose careers ended way too soon. When I first thought of the video, those 3 names popped up in my head straight away. I'm sure there are plenty of other players that we unfortunately never got to see them in their prime. Feel free to let me know in the comments section. Like I said, these 3 players came to mind straight away, and just thinking of them pretty much inspired this video. That along with Squid Rugby, Flemlo Raps, the Alpha Males. If you haven't heard of them, you gotta check them out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. I may do these in the future as well, maybe every other week or possibly every week. Something to mix up with the regular content I post. If you're new around here and are into rugby league, rugby union, gaming, and have a third leg the size of your right leg, go ahead and drop your boy a cheeky little sub and join the OddSquad. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you. Later.
I only do it proper. Gang like coppers or change when we rock up. In tourists in the 8, but I ain't talking big popper like a high speed chase. I follow with the chopper. Too sick, need a doctor. I only take an offer if all my usos prosper. Trying to make moves to it all, eating lobster. Dogs in the field, or what's a dog to a monster? Bro, I was 16, pushing 10.